What's up guys, Drew here. Today we're going to be conducting an experiment to see whether or not succulents grow better in the ground or in pots. So this past couple of months I've been in this new house. I've been able to plant succulents both in the ground and in pots like these, and also in arrangements. So today we're going to test to see where they grow better. And today with me, my lab rats, I guess you could say, are going to be this Graptocetum ghosty, this variegated gold tooth aloe, and this Graftovaria blue pearl. And yeah, let's get into it. So I wanted to give you guys a close-up view of each of these. So this is the Graptocetum ghosty. This is the Graftovaria blue pearl. As you can see, it's flowering. And this is the variegated gold tooth aloe. And now for each of these, I'm going to be doing one in the pot and one in the ground. But first, I need to get the mixture ready. So let me bring you along and show you how I do that. So for succulent mixes, I generally like to use perlite, sphagnum peat moss, and worm castings, and dirt, obviously. It could be topsoil or potting mix already like pre-mixed from the store, like in Home Depot. But whatever it is, as long as you amend it with some perlite or sphagnum peat moss or something to help drainage, because that's what is essential for succulents, you should be fine. But this is what I like to do. So we add a little bit of dirt, add a thin layer, just a thin layer of perlite on top, and then we're gonna take, I like to do five to 10 handfuls depending on how much dirt you're using. So in this case, since I'm not going to be using a lot of dirt, I'm only going to do 5. But in other cases, like if you saw my tree video, I did a lot more. And 5. Okay. And then worm castings, very little. Succulents don't need as much fertilizer as your flowers and your trees. So for this, I like to generally do just a little bit on top. Sprinkle it on there. And then once all your stuff is in there, you're just gonna want to mix it thoroughly. And make sure you get everything to be nice and spread out throughout the dirt, so that you don't have one spot of just perlite and another spot of peat moss. You want to make sure it's all evenly mixed. Make sure you get all the way to the bottom of your mixing pot or whatever you're using to mix. And it's about done. So if you've properly mixed your dirt right, it should look a little something like this. There we go. And now we're ready to start potting. Okay, so we're gonna start off with potting these guys in pots. So generally when I do this, I like to use a separate bowl or pot that's a little wider. That is helpful for when I do this, because if I were to do it like just on the table like this and take it out, I'd make a mess with the dirt everywhere. But if I have something like this where I can keep the mess to a minimum and be able to reuse the dirt that I drop, then it's a lot better. So we're gonna start off with this guy. We're gonna take, this guy looks healthy. Let's go ahead and take him out. Check out his roots. Looks pretty good. All right, so for the pot, I think I'm gonna wanna do this one. Just take his whole side off. And we're gonna put the rest of them back in here. These are probably gonna be used for arrangements, so look out for those. And then next I want to do this one, the Graptocetum. Okay. Now, let me see, which one would be good for a nice pot? I think this one. I like the way this one looks. So we're going to use that one. Put them back, same thing. It can be used for future arrangements. And finally, stand these guys up right here. Finally, we're going to use the aloe. Wow, check out those roots. He's healthy. No need to worry about him. All right, let's see which one would be good for a nice little pot. Looking, and I think I want to use this one on the edge. So let's pull them out with as many roots as possible. And there we go. Put them back. And we have our 3 plants ready to be potted in these small little 3-inch pots. So we're gonna start off, I think, with the aloe. We're gonna set this aside. Fill these guys up with the potting mix that we just made. Don't pack in the soil, just put it in there very loosely so it's easier to work your way, to work these guys into the pot. So like this guy, since he has a lot of roots. In cases like this where they have a ton of roots still attached, which is a lot bigger than the pot, I like putting them in the pot first like this and then filling them in with soil. Just so it's less hassle and it's easier to pot them like this. There we go. Let's get this over so you guys can see it a little bit better. And a little more dirt on this side. So you just want to make sure that after you're done putting in all the dirt, compact it just a bit so the water, when you water it, the water doesn't go off the sides. So just enough. It should look something like that. So this guy is done. Now, let's put him off to the side for now. And then when you have something like this, where there's a bit of roots and dirt, the roots are stuck to the dirt a bit, you just want to very gently try and take off the dirt, as much dirt as you can from the roots, not trying to disturb the root system too much, but just enough so that the plant knows that it's time to be repotted. Like pull, pinch a bit. Just try not to break off too many roots. And it's okay if you do, because they'll grow back. Succulents are pretty hardy and they're pretty drought tolerant. So these guys are pretty tough plants. Yeah. Once you're done, oh, and be careful with the babies. If your plant does have babies when you do this, whenever you're potting something like that, that's a good example of what not to do. So be careful, because I just broke off one of the leaves, but this leaf can be reused. So maybe it'll sprout into a new baby in a couple months after you let it dry. In general, you want to have something that looks like this afterwards. And then same thing. Well, this guy, see, his roots aren't as hard as the aloes. They can be moved around a lot easier. So first I want to do a small layer on the bottom of the pot, and then add your plant, and then start filling in the dirt around it. Being careful not to break those babies. Okay. It's okay if you cover up some babies like this, because succulents, their babies naturally break through the soil. Just don't cover them up all the way, but just enough so that they can get a bit of sunlight and they can start growing into their own plant. You're gonna wanna have something like that. And finally, we'll throw that leaf I broke in here. Finally, same thing with this guy. Just very gently for this Graftovaria. Very gently, twist, pinch a bit, try and get that excess dirt off. There's a whole chunk of wood in here. Let's see if I can get it out and show you guys. Piece of bark. And with delicate plants like these, it's a little bit harder, so you're just gonna want to take your time with this and don't rush. And be very gentle. Try and keep as many of those roots intact. You can even shake it a bit if you want. Just careful not to shake it too hard, or else you're gonna make a mess with the dirt. But he looks good. So you should have something like that. And same thing, these guys' roots are easier to move around, unlike the aloes. So you're gonna wanna do a thin layer at the bottom of this pot, like so. Put your plant in, try and arrange the roots around like that, and fill in the dirt around this plant. So we're gonna do that right here. So just very little by little. You're just gonna fill the dirt in. Careful not to break any of the babies again. And there we go. It's coming together. Shake it a bit just to get that dirt in place. Not too much though, or else you're gonna knock your plant out of its spot. Very lightly press down, making sure that the dirt is somewhat compacted so that your plant stays in its place, but not too compacted so that the roots can't grow in the dirt, which they will eventually, but it's easier if the dirt is a little bit looser. It's easier on the roots. Okay. And once you're done, you should have something like this. And there we go. Let's set this aside. Done using that. Clean that up a bit. Show these guys off. And there we go. These three are ready to be tested on. So after you have them, after they're like this, if you're not testing, which most of you probably aren't, so what you're gonna want to do when taking care of these guys, you're gonna want to water them once a week. And generally with succulents, it's around once a week, depending on your weather. If it's hotter, obviously you're gonna want to water more. But a good rule of thumb is to check the top inch of the soil. And if it's wet, you don't want to water. But if it's dry, like completely dry, then that's when you want to water. But yeah, these guys are ready. So let's go and pot the ones that are going to be planted in the soil. And I'll bring you guys over in just a bit. All right, so it's a little bit wet right now because I watered my Mexican key lime tree earlier. But it's mostly dried up, just a little wet on the rocks, but it should be fine. Oh, and also you can check out my mom's channel, Inside Miss Dea's World, and her Instagram. I believe she posted something on a post on Instagram about these calla lilies. So the story with those is that they were dying in their original pot that we had them in. So we repotted them, and she made a post about them. So if you want to go and you want to check out the details on that, go follow her on Instagram, Inside Miss Dea's World. But let's get straight into this. So this is the spot I'm gonna have my little test in. So first what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove all of these rocks and put them in this area and put them in this red bucket. So it makes it easier for me to pot the plants here. That way I don't have to be struggling like moving rocks around. That way just get them all out in one go. And then yeah, so once I'm done with that, I'll bring you guys back. All right, rocks have been removed and the plants are ready to be planted into the ground. So same thing with how we did it with the pots. Take them out of their thing. And let's see, which one would look nice in the ground? A good future mother plant. I like this one. This one's looking pretty good. Let's try and get them out with as many roots as possible. Pulling down, try and get those roots. Oh, and check it out. I was right. He's got a little baby and a lot of roots. So this guy looks pretty good. Okay, so that one. And then we're gonna put the rest of them back in here. Future arrangements. Be on the lookout for those. Now it's time for the Graftovaria. Let's see which one look good in the ground. I'm looking at this one. This one looks nice. And same thing, you want to kind of pull down, try and get as many roots as possible. Oh, there we go. Okay. Check it out. Decent amount of roots. We're going to want to put them back in the pot. And finally, the Graptocetum. Okay. So for these guys, let's see. Oh, we're definitely going to want to use this one. This one looks very promising. Check it out. This guy is a beauty. Look how many roots he's got. All that, and hidden inside of this dirt is roots. So this guy looks promising. So these are our three succulents that are going to be going into the ground. Let's go into it. And let me give you guys a close-up so you can see what they look like a little better. So check them out. We got the Graptocetum ghosty, the Graftovaria blue pearl, and the variegated gold tooth aloe. And now it's time to plant them in the ground. So let me bring you guys in a little closer so you can see exactly how I do it. So I did this ahead of time because I already showed you guys earlier, but check out the root system one more time. Gently, what I did, same thing with that I did with the pots, just very gently poking at the soil around the roots to expose the roots and let them know that it's time for a new home. But I just wanted to show you guys really quickly their root system to see how many roots they have. Okay, so these guys are done. And we're done with this green pot. So we can put that off to the side. And now begins the fun part. Oh, and one more thing. I will be adding some worm castings to this, to the ground, just to make it a little more fair and accurate. Just a little bit. So we're gonna be adding very little once the holes are ready. So to do that, use a shovel. If you have rocky soil like I do, it's like very clay, very dense. It's more like clay-like soil with bits of rocks around it. But it's fine because succulents can do pretty well in any type of soil, as long as you give them what they need. Although they prefer well draining mixes, but in the ground it's different because it's the ground and they can search for nutrients on their own. They don't have to wait for you to give them, fertilize them, because they're in the ground, so they can stretch their roots as deep as they want in order to find that nutrients they need. Okay, so here I'm gonna want the aloe. So what I'm gonna do is very gently twist the roots around like that, set them in place, and then we're gonna add a bit of, just a very little bit of worm castings around his little hole. And then we're gonna cover them up with the soil. Like so. And you can see I'm leaving him a bit poked out of the soil like that, not fully submerged, because keep in mind there's gonna be rocks around him. So I wanna leave space for him to actually throw off his babies. Okay, and the next one. So he looks good. Next one, we're gonna do the Graptocetum ghosty. And what I found when planting succulents and any other plant in this in ground, like in the earth, is that when you're trying to make the hole, like doing it just like this is kind of hard. It gets harder over time because all you're doing is you're just stabbing one line. You're not actually making a hole, you're just stabbing a line. So what I usually do is I do like X's, so it starts making a hole shape. And then as you're going, if you have the soil like mine where it has rocks in it, you just take out the rocks as you go. And then you start making the hole. And then you keep doing it to however deep you want your hole to be. In this case, it doesn't have to be super deep because his roots aren't super deep, so it makes it easier. And then you want to check it, make sure you're not making it super duper deep, and that's about good. I think that's good. So what you want to do is kind of like spread the roots out. Just arrange them so they can spread and attach to the ground. And then worm casting, before I forget. Same thing, just a little bit around his hole. Mix it in and fill him up. And he should be good. Okay. And very gently just press the soil around him. I'm gonna lift him up a bit more because I want him to be a little bit more sticking out. And that looks good. And then finally, we're going to do the Graftovaria. Okay, so I'm gonna want him right here. Yeah, that's a good spot. Good spot as any. Same thing, you got soil like mine. Kind of sucks, but you know, it is what it is. Take out the rocks. There's some big ones right here. Should look at that. There's a big one right here. I can feel it. Let me see if I can find them for you guys. Sounds like I struck gold or treasure, but it's just rocks. No, he wasn't big. He was just very thick. It's funny. Thick rock. So that should be almost deep enough. Let's check. Let's see. Yeah, that's deep enough. Okay, that looks good. I like that. And then we're gonna put him right here. So same thing, a little bit of worm castings around his hole. Just evenly spread that out, mix it a bit, and then fill him up. And then same thing, very gently, just press around. You don't have to really press down because when you water him in, that'll do that for you. But I want him a little bit sticking out more. So if you want him sticking out more, like I did to this guy, you want to grab him very gently and then just start trying to take him out little by little. You don't want to just pull him out like that because then you'll risk taking the whole plant out and having to do this process over again. So you're just going to want to very gently pull him out a little bit like that. And he's still in his place. And that way he stays in his spot, and it's easier for you to press the soil around him. And there we go. I like how it looks. So now that this is done, I'm gonna fill the rocks back in and I'll show you guys what it looks like afterwards. Okay, really quick. One thing I did change is I spread them out a little bit further just to give them enough space for their babies to grow. So in case they do stick here and they do like it, that they have enough room between each other to put out babies. So yeah, other than that, everything's exactly the same. So yeah, let's put in the rocks. All right, the rocks are in and they're looking good. So as you can probably see, I left a little bit of a border around each of them just to give them enough space to get their baby started, so they don't have to struggle with like pushing their babies through this layer of rock, just to make it easier on them. And yeah, but other than that, they're ready. And the final step of this test I'm doing is next. And the final step is going to be adding the pots, the ones that I put in the pots, and putting them right next to them to make it fair, so that they get the exact same amount of sunlight. But other than that, this part is done. All right, this is the finished product. I think it looks really good. In my opinion, I think that the ones in the ground are gonna do better than the ones in the pots, but that's just a prediction. I could be wrong. This is why we're doing this test. But other than that, this part of the test is done. So thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe, hit that like button if you want a part 2 with all the updates I'm gonna be doing. And yeah, be sure to support my mom's channel, Inside Miss Dea's World. I'll have it linked in the description. But other than that, from my garden to yours, hope you have a nice day and take care.